In the face of escalating terrorist violence initiated by Hamas, Israel has now unveiled a comprehensive strategy aimed at decisively neutralizing the terrorist organization and also securing a long-term peace and stability in the Gaza Strip. Now, this strategy is grounded in the belief that Hamas, with its long history of terrorism and anti-Israeli rhetoric, poses an imminent threat to Israeli civilians, as was evidenced in Saturday's attacks, which cut across more than 24 Israeli locations. Hamas, in stark contrast to the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, or Fatah, the political party which rules the West Bank, has long pursued a radical agenda which seeks the complete elimination of Israel as a sovereign country. Hamas's charter dates all the way back to 1988, which openly expresses anti-Semitic sentiments and calls for the destruction of the Jewish state. This uncompromising stand by Hamas has been a significant bone of contention in any peace negotiations in the past. Now here, it's essential to recognize that the goals of Hamas and the aspirations of the Gazan people are not necessarily fully in sync. The people of Gaza have endured the hardships of an Israeli blockade, which has been supported by Egypt. It severely restricts the flow of goods and people in and out of Gaza. Under Hamas's rule, Gazans have reported repression, arbitrary arrests, and systemic human rights abuses. Recent polls have indicated a growing discontent among Gazans with Hamas's policies, many of them openly expressing a desire for Hamas to abandon its call for the death of Israel. They've also complained about corruption within institutions run by Hamas. While Hamas secured an electoral victory in Gaza in 2006, it is essential to note that it only received a plurality of the votes, not an outright majority, which means it won less than 50% of the votes of the Gazan people. Now, this distinction highlights the complex political landscape within the Gaza Strip. It suggests that Hamas does not enjoy unanimous support amongst the entire Gazan population. And there have been no elections since 2006. Those were the first and only elections in this region. Despite the challenges, some Palestinians in Gaza have consistently protested against Hamas, particularly in recent months. In fact, a 2022 poll revealed that a majority of Gazans believe that they cannot criticize Hamas's authority without the fear of repercussions. These protests underscore the growing dissent within the Gaza Strip against Hamas. Basically, Hamas has not been able to make the political transition which the Muslim Brotherhood, for example, has managed to make in neighboring Egypt. Since its inception, Hamas has maintained a very hostile stance, asserting that Israel has no right to exist. In fact, it views all Israeli citizens as legitimate targets because of their perceived association with the state. Now, this uncompromising ideology has hindered any form of diplomatic or political normalization between Israel and Hamas. In light of the horrific events of this past weekend, Israel has adopted a comprehensive strategy aimed at thoroughly dismantling the terror infrastructure within Gaza. The deployment of over 300,000 troops demonstrates Israel's commitment to ensuring the eradication of Hamas and the prevention of any future large-scale attacks on Israeli citizens. And if that means occupying the Gaza Strip, because they have mobilized up to 300,000 reservists to flush out these terrorists, then Israel is prepared to do this for the long haul. Israel recognizes that a robust military response is necessary to weaken Hamas's capabilities significantly. This involves targeting Hamas's facilities, including rocket launching sites, weapon storage depots, and command centers. The goal is to disrupt Hamas's ability to launch attacks against Israel. Israeli forces are also conducting targeted counterterrorism operations to apprehend or eliminate Hamas leaders. Israel is also leveraging its intelligence capabilities to identify and target Hamas's extensive tunnel network. The group uses this to smuggle weapons as well as to launch surprise attacks. Israel is also intensifying its efforts to try and prevent the smuggling of weapons and material in Gaza through its naval blockade, further hampering Hamas's terror capabilities. While Israel's primary objective is to neutralize Hamas, the possibility of temporary occupation of Gaza is also being considered as some kind of a last resort. Because to achieve long-term security and stability, such an occupation would entail a comprehensive effort to rebuild Gaza, its infrastructure, provide its people with humanitarian aid, and basically to create conducive conditions for peace. But for that to happen, Israel also realizes that Gaza cannot thrive in a political vacuum. If and when Hamas is neutralized, and that is the intended goal, and the fact that 300,000 reservists have been mobilized is clear that Israel is prepared for the long haul to achieve a lasting peace, Israel will also have to be open to a political and diplomatic engagement with the Palestinian Authority, which rules the West Bank. Now, this is the more peaceful political authority which represents the Palestinian people, unlike Hamas. The Palestinian people in Gaza will need a political leadership that they can look up to and the leadership that can voice their concerns and their aspirations. That clearly, after Saturday's attack, is not Hamas, but it could be Fatah. Once the Israeli military operation concludes, there could be an opening of dialogue with the Palestinian Authority and with the political party Fatah, which rules the West Bank, because a vacuum will only enable another Hamas-like organization to crop up in Gaza. In conclusion, Israel's current strategy is driven by its strong imperative to safeguard its citizens from Hamas's attacks. It wants to ensure a lasting peace in the region. The deployment of substantial military force reflects Israel's determination to dismantle Hamas's capabilities once and for all. While Israel is prepared to take the necessary measures to achieve these goals, its ultimate objective remains a long and durable peace which can only come about with a realistic path to a two-state solution. So, in a way, they're going back to the 1990s and the Oslo Accords because Israel realizes that that path to peace will only be realized with Fatah as a partner and not Hamas.